level. All right, thank you so much, Yash, for all that information. We are moving on to some other stories now coming in. India's defense exports have seen a massive 62.66% increase, touching an all-time high of rupees 38,424 crore in the financial year 2025-26. This is a rise of rupees 14,802 crore over the previous fiscal year's figure of rupees 23,622 crore. Giving the details, the Union Defence Ministry has said on Thursday that Defence Public Sector Undertaking or DPSUs and the private sector have contributed around 54.84% and 45.16% respectively. It added that the DPSU's exports surged by 151% compared to the previous year, with private firms showcasing their robust presence by recording an increase of 14%. And in terms of value of contribution, the private sector accounted for rupees 17,353 crore worth of defence exports, while DPSUs contributed rupees 21,071 crore. Now, their respective figures in the previous financial year stood at rupees 15,233 crore and rupees 8,389 crore. With that, let's take a closer and more comprehensive look at this. Remember that this is something that the Defence Ministry has announced today, and this is a remarkable milestone that India has in fact released. This is big defence exports that we are talking about. So let's look at that graph. We have an export gain in the defence sector, and let's give you a year-by-year breakup of how we are in fact looking at an upward trajectory in this sector. So in 2021 to 2022 financial year, we were seeing an export of around rupees 12,815 crore. That next year changed to 15,918 crore. So clearly we are seeing a slight marginal increase. But then in 2023-24 fiscal year, it rose to 21,083 crore. And after that in 2024-25, the exports in fact touched 23,622 crore. But what's more significant is you can look at this graph, the graph that shows you the magnitude of increase. We have seen an exponential rise in the defence exports of the fiscal year of 2025-26, and it stands at rupees 38,424. So clearly in front of you, this is a massive increase, and we are giving you this picture again to show you the comparison of how big of a magnitude this is from the previous year to this year. This is a massive 62.66% growth over last year. In just 1 year, we have managed to attain a growth of 62% in our defence exports, viewers, and DPSU's exports have surged to 151% to 21,071 crore. So only DPSU exports have risen more than 100%, 151% rise, and private sector exports have risen by around 14% to 17,353 crore. So we are seeing a rise in fact the DPSUs looking at this extensive defence export sector. And obviously this goes on to show how the global world is in fact they agree with India's capabilities. They are recognizing India's capabilities and making sure that they invest in this new future that India is in fact looking at. This is defence exports, and in fact our Defence Minister Rajnath Singh had stated that this actually proves how the world is now looking at India and its promise of increasing the defence exports. So this is our export grain that we have told you about, and this when we talk about the private sector as well, they have also seen a rise of around 14%. percent. So this is something that we have in fact been telling you about. And let me in fact rope in our guest who's joining us on the broadcast to discuss this further, Major Muhammad Ali Shah, who's a defense expert. Thank you so much, sir, for taking out your time and for speaking to NewsX. So we were just talking about the exponential gain that India has seen in its defense exports. And what's more remarkable, sir, is that the DPSUs have seen an increase of 151% growth.
Right. See, the thing is, India's defense market, if you see overall, otherwise, not just defense, otherwise, I think it's very, very good. We are making growth. We are in good relationship with other countries. Our trade network is growing. And so most certainly, it's bound to go upwards. I'll give you example that, earlier, I'll give you a different example only, that earlier there was a time when we would look at countries like Russia, we would look at France, we would look at Israel, we would look at America, who would supply us military equipment. They were our military partners. But then we said, let's start manufacturing on our own. Let's become self-sufficient, self-reliant, and let's become Atmanirbhar. Let's make it in India. Today, small countries like Philippines, we are exporting equipment to them. And our Defense Minister Rajnath Singh has said very, very clearly, we want India to not just make for India, but to make for the world. So today we are on the right track, I think, and we should feel very, very proud to be Indian, in fact. Today, when the entire world is suffering, when they're feeling the heat of the Middle East war, of the South Asian war, rather I would like to call it South Asian war. India, it's been a month. Till now, India hasn't felt the heat. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, we don't know, but so far so good. So you see a duck in water, a duck looks very pretty, but beneath that, the duck is pedaling, is trying very, very hard, it's working very hard. So I commend the people in power, whoever, irrespective of the political parties, people in power, in diplomacy, who actually have been working very, very hard to ensure that the Indian citizens are not affected by what's going on in the world, and our production in terms of, especially in terms of defense, but overall, it's only increasing. Yes.
Absolutely. Let me also rope in Mr. Manan Dwivedi, who's a foreign affairs expert, and he can shed some light. So I want to understand, obviously, this does show that there is a trust among the global nations regarding India's indigenous capabilities and regarding the robust manufacturing sector that we actually have. And given the geopolitical circumstances that the world actually is in right now, we have seen Israel raise its defense budgets. So we can in fact look at exporting more defense products. We are seeing such a huge impact in just 1 year, sir, a growth of 66% in our defense exports.
Definitely, thanks for calling me. I would just like to mention couple of points here. The first one being that the manner in which the United States of America is being castigated is perennially and omnisciently just criticized and ridiculed and taken for task by not the Indian media but by the international media for fighting a war for oil, for fighting a war for actually supplying it to the clients of its weaponry. For example, like weaponry which emanates from the Lockheed Martin or from the General Electrics and several Raytheon Corps. So the idea is that there is no sacrosanctity about international politics. When India used to buy weapons from Russia and Israel, and to a lesser extent around 20 years back from United States of America, we had to look into another option also. That option being the option of Atmanirbharta or self-reliance, where India against Prime Minister Narendra Modi completely changed the tag after 2014, wherein technology transfer for the mutual development of weaponry and warring equipment became the call of the day or became the order of the day as far as India's defense policy is concerned. But there was a wrangling factor. I still very easily remember, not as a student of international relations, neither as a student of a scholar of international relations, wherein the defense acquisition by the MOD and by the government of India, with definitely contributions from MEA, that took a gestation time period of, let's say, around 12 to 15 years. So if a MiG class combat aircraft had to be disbanded, it took us, it happened only a year back. And if Rafales had to be bought in, if I'm giving an example here, that is, if Mirages had to be bought in, it took us 12 years to get the first squadron, or let's say the first cache of S-400 missiles, which gave a kind of a good battering to the American, to the Pakistani projectiles during Operation Sindoor. So, there was this kind of a dementia, there was this kind of a negativity and pessimism, which was very much imbued with the past regime, that whatever was the demand and the requirement of the military establishment in India, it had to go through a lot of red tapeism. It had to go through a lot of systemic challenges.
Right.
And only then the Indian Army would acquire what it wanted. But
right.
Now with the stress being
all
on
right. In fact, I'll request my panelists to stay on with us because we have some break.